Today we will be studying Unit 2.3, Rome. Our key questions today are the similarities and differences between the Roman Republic and the Roman Empire, how the Romans ruled their large empire and what were their lasting contributions, and why did Rome fall, and what were the impacts of its decline. So here we see a basic timeline of Roman history. Our first step, we'll see small villages in Italy along the Tiber River. Around 750 BCE, before Common Era, these villages started to unite in the city of Rome. From 750 to 509 BCE, kings ruled this city-state out of Rome. Starting in 509 BCE, Rome will become a republic, meaning it will have representative democracy. In 27 BCE, a man named Augustus Caesar will be named emperor and arguably end the political system of a republic. We'll discuss this in a later slide. Around 476, Rome definitively fell to the Goths when their city was taken over. Arguably, they had been falling for about 200 years. So let's focus in today on the Republic and Empire period. A republic means the people elect their representatives. In Rome, this body was called the Senate. Here you can see some of the connections in modern Western civilization or the United States with classical Rome. We also have a representative body called the Senate. The Senate will make the laws, much like we've talked about previously with Greece. Although Rome had voting and representation and was a form of democracy, there were a very limited number of citizens, of people who actually got to participate. Male citizens, often land or property owning. Rome was organized through a legal system provided by their government and that Senate, most famously the codification of their laws known as the 12 Tables. Under this law code, you see very modern concepts of justice like equal treatment under the law, innocent until proven guilty, etc. Much like voting, however, we will see these rights, this protection under the law, only offered to a small subsection of the general population, those male citizens. The Roman government, law, and citizenship also emphasized the responsibilities of good citizenship, the idea of civic duty. And those senators and leaders in the community were really admired, and it was idealized. This is what a good Roman should be, someone who works as a statesman to move the government and society forward. The social structure in Rome will have two main groupings, the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians are the Roman aristocracy. This was the top tier of the Roman social pyramid. They would be landowners, often large landowners or estate owners. In the beginning of the Roman Republic, the patricians would have made up the entire Senate. There would have been no plebeian members. As time goes on throughout the Republic, they will evolve and include more and more of those lower class citizens, plebeians, again, male citizens, but lower class, lower wealth, as part of that representative democracy. And again, those plebeians will be those commoners, those average people. Another element of Roman social structure were gender relations. Rome was definitely a patriarchal society, patriarchy, male-dominated society. Women had no rights and were legally the equivalent of a minor or a child, no property rights, no legal rights, etc. Now, that does not mean women didn't have power within the home or society. They could. We don't know the dynamics of families and relationships within their homes. What we do know is officially the law code, as written, would not have given women those rights. Within this, we have a concept called paterfamilias. Rome believed in paterfamilias, meaning the male head of household had complete control of the household. This might be the father, but it might also be the grandfather or the patriarch. If on a large estate you had multiple members and generations of a family living together, then the eldest male would be the paterfamilias, the father of the family, the head of the family, almost like the king and the ruler within the family. So we have this Roman Republic, and we know it's going to end and transition to something called an empire, where we see the end of that representative government. And there's a lot of debate about exactly when that will happen. Here we have 4 major dates in that process, and then at the end we'll talk about which one of these moments most people consider the end of the Republic. So starting in 49 BCE, we see a great rise of a general named Julius Caesar, who will eventually use the soldiers' loyalty to him to march into Rome and intimidate the Senate and the leaders of Rome. In 44 BCE, he will be elected by the senators as dictator for life. This was a concept written into Roman law, the idea being at a time of crisis, war, natural disaster, etc., you might need to move away from that more deliberative, representative process of democracy and have a strong, powerful leader make quick, important decisions. So they had the ability to vote away the Senate temporarily for one of these dictators or tyrants. And this wouldn't necessarily have the negative connotation we think of today. It was always meant to be a temporary situation. When society and government is back kind of on even keel, then we would go back to the Senate. Now in this case, in 44 BCE, the Senate isn't really doing this voluntarily. They're doing it under the pressure of General Julius Caesar's army intimidating them. And so they will give him this position, but within a month they will turn on him and he will be stabbed on the floor of the Senate by many of these leaders, many of whom had been his personal friends. And so after this, we see a period of chaos and civil war within Rome. Emerging from that, you get 2 leaders, Mark Antony and Octavius, and they will ultimately fight at the Battle of Actium. You can see an artistic representation of that right here. Mark Antony will have made an ally in the Queen of Egypt, Cleopatra, who, if you remember, is part of that Ptolemaic dynasty, meaning from Alexander's empire and thus of Greek descent. And Octavius will emerge victorious from this battle, and he will become the sole ruler in Rome. In 27 BCE, the Senate will name Octavius emperor. He will take the name Augustus. Now, Augustus is the nephew of Julius Caesar, and he watched his uncle rise to power and be betrayed and stabbed by the Senate. And so he will take a very different approach to how he treats the Senate. Octavius will have supreme power of an emperor, but he's going to maintain at least the facade or the appearance that the Senate has power as well. And so he tries to placate or keep happy those senators, make them feel like they still have an important role, while he gets to do the things that he wants unchecked. And so most historians would consider this date, the crowning of Augustus as emperor in 27 BCE, as the end of the Republic. So what does this period of Roman Empire look like? The most important concept for this really is this idea of Pax Romana. Pax means peace in Latin. So this is Roman peace. And it means that throughout the empire, if you look at this map, this light pink color, this large territory, there's general peace and prosperity. Now, Rome is expanding through conquest, so it doesn't mean there's no war, but what it means is within the boundaries of this pink, there is a stable government. There is security from the military forces. There is economic growth and prosperity. There is trade. People in Rome aren't scared to send their ships to Alexandria to trade. They're not afraid that they're going to be attacked or that there won't be any security. And so we see large advances in technology, in economics, in culture in this period of security. It's particularly the Romans are known for their technology and engineering. If we look at this picture, you can see an aqueduct. And an aqueduct is a way to get water to these cities, particularly by using gravity. So what they do is they build a man-made lake and use gravity to take the water from one place to another. Now, if you note, right, the natural landscape is not going to continue a downward gradient. And so they have to go through mountains, build bridges in order to keep a steady gradient in which the water will flow downward to the city. Here you can see one of those bridges from an aqueduct still today. Another famous element of Roman technology will be the roads. This is a picture from today. So when we say the Romans could build roads, these are roads that lasted over 2,000 years. And you can see the technology for drainage in the middle and along the edges. They'll have large bridges as well as sewers, and many of the wealthy in the city of Rome will actually have running water in their homes. The art and architecture of Rome, we see mosaics, these tiles, right? Small pieces put together to make a larger image, sculpture, and then architecturally we get amphitheaters, these big entertainment venues, most famously in the city of Rome, the Colosseum, and also a hippodrome. A hippodrome was a giant racetrack, and both the Colosseum and the hippodrome were entertainment venues in these major, wealthy, densely populated cities. And here you can see images of the Colosseum as well, the inside as well. And then here are artistic renderings of the hippodrome, these really big racetracks. City life was an important component of the Roman experience. Rome had a lot of major cities. They were able to get the roads and the water to make that happen, the wealth to support it. These were very diverse, people from all over the empire, lots of languages, religions, etc., and lots of trade to sustain it. As we mentioned, there would have been lots of entertainment in the cities, much the way we think of today, and it would also function as your government centers. Roman religion really mirrored that of the ancient Greeks. If you look, many of their gods are the same. They just are given a different name, sometimes a slightly different story or interaction. And they are polytheistic. Each city would have had a patron god, similar to what we talked about with Greece, Athens' patron being Athena. And this is where Roman religion is really important for our purposes, because these rituals, religious rituals to keep the gods happy, were also part of the civic rituals, government rituals. And so tomorrow, in the next lecture, we will talk about how this comes into conflict with other religions. Generally speaking, Rome is very, very tolerant of different languages and very tolerant of different religions, as long as your religion did not interfere with participation in these civic rituals that we have talked about up here. For most polytheistic societies, it's not a big deal. You do the ritual and you believe in your God too. This becomes problematic as we get monotheistic religions. Monotheistic religions are not willing to participate in a ritual for another god. We will stop here for today. We will pick up on the rest of lecture 2.3 in another video.